I gotta get up there. Hey, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So here we are
How you
again.
doing?
Good man. I'll tell you. We were talking off air. The power of routine is insane. Like the things. I talk with clients all the time, and this is so key for our kids as it is for us. It shows up so much more apparent with our kids that they are creatures of routine. You take them out of their routine, everything goes a little haywire for a little bit. They go to bed a little bit later and they feel it the next morning. Have a bit too much sugar today. Tomorrow is kind of a wreck. Like we take them on a trip, all this the time zones are off. Everybody gets messed up for a little bit, and yet we seem to think that as adults that we have we've evolved past that. Like we've evolved past like I can just do whatever I want. Like I'm smart. Like we think that we're too smart for our own 2 million year old lizard brain.
Mm.
And so when we get into routines or we get out of routines, everything becomes a little bit more chaotic. Everything, and we wonder why things are not working out the way that we want them. And I was just telling you right before getting on that I've transitioned to waking up hella early. And it's been like this for a good year or so. But I've noticed just over the last little bit that I will wake up 10, 12, 13 minutes before my alarm goes off. And I have a pretty sophisticated alarm system to get me out of bed, to make sure that I get out of bed. There's a lot of leverage for me to get out of bed. Um, Yet I'm waking up before that alarm, which is insane because the alarm is at 4:30 in the morning. So somehow, whether I get 6 hours of sleep, whether I get 8 hours of sleep, my body somehow knows. Like that routine has just been ingrained. Like that, those neural pathways in my body have just been, yeah, they're deep now, and it's fascinating to see.
Yeah. Well, and you know the nervous system better than me. What is it like? What is it about having that internal alarm? Like when you've got a flight or something really important in the morning, there's been so many times where my body's just got itself up, even without the alarm clock. Like, how does your body know?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
That you that is the nervous system guy. But and what's the you mentioned there too, you've got a pretty elaborate alarm system there. What's that? What's that about?
Well, we have a king size bed that right now is I'm still on the edge. I still manage to just end up on the edge of the bed every night because there's my wife who's in the bed, but then also we have our 5 year old that is still coming into our bed in the middle of the night, many nights. So one thing that I know is that my wife loves her sleep and is and does not like, and I'm saying that lightly, does not like when she doesn't get to sleep or when she's woken up early. So I have to devise a plan to get myself out of bed without waking her up. So I have two alarms set. So I have this is kind of I call it a dumb smartwatch. It's like a smartwatch, like one of those. It's like a watch that is supposed to be able to do like everything like an Apple Watch does, or like like one of those Garmin watches, or like one of those kind of big time watches. But it cost me like $30 on Amazon. So, but what it does have is it has an alarm that just vibrates. So it's like a vibrating alarm thing. So on my wrist at 4:30, 4:31, and 4:32, it vibrates 6 times, which is my first alarm. So if I'm dead asleep, I'll usually feel that. If I don't wake up at 4:30, then at 4:31, my phone, which is kind of nearish my bed, but still kind of away, that alarm starts to go off, and it starts vibrating. But then there's music that goes on, and it gets louder and louder. It's like a nice sound, like if it's not like a jarring sound, but it's like some whimsical like little music that goes on, and it gets louder and louder. And if it goes on, the only way to turn it off is I have to I have to open the app, the alarm app. It's called Alarmy, and I have to scan a QR code that I've put into the on the back side of the cabinet door in the bathroom, like the mirrored cabinet in our bathroom, which is just off of our bedroom. So we have an ensuite, but then we have another, like we call it the kids bathroom. And so I have to go into there and scan that QR code to turn the alarm off. So my job really at 4:30 is to, between 4:30 and 4:31, get out of bed, grab my phone, and walk over to, as I'm walking to the bathroom, turn the alarm off so that it doesn't start.
Yeah.
And then I'm in the bathroom at 4:30. I turn the light on. I learned this from Mel Robbins. I think she has the book, the high five something, high five method, or the high five whatever it is. So as I walk into the bathroom, I put my phone down, I look in the mirror, I give myself a high five in the mirror, and then I usually go to the bathroom and then try to get myself ready to get my cold plunge.
All right. Okay. I think you'd shared this before, but that's I've never heard of that alarm system where, you know, it's that elaborate to shut it off, but to make sure that you get up. Yeah. Should get my kids to download that.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing about how our brain works. Sometimes, so I've had it set where, let's say, there's been a couple times where let's say if my wife has like a really big meeting in the morning, or something really big going on the next day, or if I'm not feeling well, or if she's not feeling well, I'll give her just the entire room to herself, and I'll come sleep downstairs. And it's happened a couple times where, or once when they were away, they were out of town, my alarm goes off first thing in the morning, and rather than get up to have to go turn it off, I'll lie in my bed, and I've lied there and just removed the app from my phone, like deleted the app from my phone, which then shuts the alarm off.
Okay.
And so
Clever.
I've
You
done
found a
that. It's silly, but I remember, but I've done it, and then I'll just go back to bed. And then the next day, I'm like, oh my gosh! Then I have to like re-download the app, set it all up again. But it's
That's clever. You found a hack on it. Well, and again, I think about, that's very considerate of you though, to have the system largely to make sure that you don't disturb your wife. That's very considerate of you.
Well, I mean, you can call it considerate of me, but also it's for me too, because I live in a home full of women, of girls, two girls and a woman, and just to keep the peace, sometimes I'll do that.
Yes, I can see you choosing your words wisely. But well, yes, works for everybody. That's a good system. Yeah.
It works for her, but it also works better for me if I work for her. If it works for her.
Yeah. Win. That's really good.
Yeah, but all to say, it's amazing that getting up at 4:30. So like over the last little bit, I've been putting the kids to bed, and I've been working on another project, working on some ads for my program that I'm selling, and it's a whole new world that I don't understand, or I'm learning. I'm learning more and more how to set up meta ads and all that stuff, and how to get them to convert and all that fun stuff. But so I've been up later and being more taxed mentally later on in the day. And even with that, so going to bed a little bit later, going to bed kind of thinking about this stuff, waking up thinking about it, my body is still like, it's making it happen. Like we're getting up, it's all happening, which is amazing. I'm just amazed.
Yeah.
By it all.
Right. Back to your point. Yeah. The power of routine and habit. And yeah, I think, you know, I've struggled sometimes with those habits because, as Tony would say, there's this desire we have for consistency, but we also have this desire for variety. And I think sometimes I let that desire for variety, you know, take over and try and switch things up too much versus, you know, keep the consistency that part of me needs, and then look for getting that variety elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. There's a time. It's like, yeah, there's a time and a place for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing those two are part of, I guess in his view of things, there's six sort of core human needs, and those two being sort of at the foundation of it. Yeah, how do you make sure that you've got that consistent routine? And if you crave variety, how to get that somewhere else rather than switching things up?
Yeah, and I think the idea with this stuff, I know, especially in the morning, we've talked a little bit about this over the last little bit, just about like just getting in state. Like part of that consistency and that creating that certainty is that I can put my body and I can put my mind in a state to perform. And if and when I just wake up and just kind of default through the day, I can be triggered by things. All of a sudden, my kids are an annoyance as opposed to a blessing, and everything just seems to go haywire. And taking that time in the morning to reset everything, to just be like, okay, this is my time, and so that I can be there for them later. So by the time they
Yeah.
get up, I'm good to go. I'm ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You still doing the cold plunging?
Still doing the cold plunging.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example of what you're saying, getting in the state and doing something even if aren't definitely gonna love it, how good it is for you for the rest of the day in life.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a streak? Do you have a streak going, or is there a little bit of break in there, or largely, how long have you been doing it for now?
There was a streak. I had done a streak of. I'm not keeping track of it anymore. That's again. It's one of those things. It's like, I've done it enough that. But I had my streak was over. I think it was over 300 days or something like that. I've done it.
Yeah, but largely you've been doing it for a number of, more, even if you broke the streak, but still doing it for
Yeah, it's been a few
years now.
years. It's been 2.5 years, 3 years, almost
Right.
every day. And but what's interesting about that, and I think there's a correlative to other things in life too, is that if and when I have taken a break, say like there's a couple of days I had to clean the tub, and so there was a leak in one of them that I had, and so whatever, so I couldn't do it for a couple of days. When I came back to it, even though it's only been a couple of days, it was so hard. It was so much harder. Like it's still hard every day. It's never ever easy. I never want to do it. I always want the feeling of it, of having done it, because the feeling afterwards is amazing. And just even the mental fortitude of having gone through something, and I said, and saying, this is something I got from Tony, was, I do not negotiate with myself. I say I'm going to do it, and I do it. Like there's no negotiation here. My mind wants to not do it. There's so much in my body that does not want to do it. But it's like, no, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. And so just that. But not doing it for a couple of days, oh my gosh. It's like it's like all of the monkey chatter comes back in my brain, like, oh, I don't need to do it today. Like, oh, like, what am I trying to be, a hero? Like, who am I trying to prove anything to?
Right,
Like,
right.
whatever. It's all this stuff that, or like, oh, I'm already cold, so that should be good enough. I'm already uncomfortable. It's like, no, shut up, get in the tub.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably, I don't know, 3 degrees out or something.
Today's
4 degrees
cold.
out.
There's frost. Yeah, there was frost. It's been so nice over the last few days,
Yeah.
or the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks,
I
or
mean,
a week or so. But today
It
it's
is
cold
enough
outside.
for some people. Yeah, you could easily go out there and just stand up and be like, yeah, okay, I'm good. This is cold enough. But then to get into an actual ice bath, that's at this degree outside. That's next level, man. Kudos to you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we could go on a dad rant. I know sometimes we bring in current events. We could go on a whole dad rant around the craziness that's every single day now, it seems like, in terms of what's going on in the world. But and I know you also had another good topic there too. We could just dive right into.
Right. Well, on that though, on the dad rant, like on the stuff that's happening, I know one of the things that I find myself doing, or have found myself doing, And it's a perfect time to do this right now with the state of the world, with all of the things that are happening, is to allow my time and my energy to just get sucked in by all of that and make all of that matter more than what really matters, and make things on the outside seem like they have so much more control over me than they really do. So one of the things I've done over the last couple of weeks, because I'm trying to get this project off the ground, because I'm trying to I'm just hyper focused on this one thing to really change. Really, for me, I feel like it's changing the trajectory of my family with this thing that I'm doing. And I found myself I love independent media, and so there is a YouTube channel that I follow called Breaking Points. It's like this couple. Well, they're not a couple, but they're these two people, Crystal and Jetty, and no, Sagar and Jetty and Crystal Ball. They are like Sagar is more like on the right. He's more right leaning politically, and Crystal is more left leaning politically, and so they have not opposing, but they have different ideologies on some things, but they're able to come together, have debates about things, talk about things in a civil way. And it's great. And they give the news and talk about what's happening in the world. It's very US centric because they're in the US. But I would find myself watching clips of theirs because they're fascinating. It's really fascinating to know what's going on. But then I found I'm just getting sucked into this and all this stuff with the Canadian politics right now. And that was consuming so much of my life. Not so much, but enough that I started feeling like it was a distraction. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not, it's until I feel like I'm out of the whole of what I'm going through here, like what I'm building, and that there's a little bit more consistency and I feel some comfort and ease in it. I got to turn it all off. And interestingly, since turning it all off, nothing much has changed in my life other than I have more time to do all the other stuff. But there's less, I feel like there's less pull and there's less control from outside factors. And it's interesting. We seem to think that because there's a new president or in the United States or a new prime minister here in Canada, or there's a new political party, that like everything is just going to radically shift. And our day-to-day lives really aren't controlled that deeply by them. Like it's still relatively the same. I mean, yes, there are some differences, but like not as much as we make it out to be. Ultimately, we control our destinies in terms of what we do with our days and how we spend our time and where we put our energy and how we take care of our kids and all of that thing. Like all of that doesn't change. And I think when we allow those things to creep in more, we seem to start to believe that they have more control over our lives day to day, when they really don't. Like the latest, dumb thing, or the latest greatest thing that Donald Trump said doesn't have that much bearing on my moment to moment existence.
Yeah. Well, that's a great perspective because, it's pretty easy to get consumed by that, as you were saying too, and you can see it, most people, you just can see that they want to start talking about this. And if you bring it up, it's like, oh yeah. And then it's like this big conversation that they're just waiting to have happen. And yeah, it's like a soap opera. I mean, and it is ridiculous. I mean, it's very easy to get caught up in the thinking that it is impacting us. Like, oh, they're slapping these tariffs on us, and prices of this are going to go up. And what about this? Then but you're right. If you just take a moment and and as you were saying too, with some of your practices, this is also being a good situation that I've also used to get back in touch with some practices that help me not get so focused on the stuff out there and help me get far more centered with what's going on in here. But yeah, it's pretty easy to get caught up in it. And but yeah, for me, it's allowed me to double down on things like, getting out in nature is really important for me. I find that's a very centering activity, very grounding, and especially when I do it, and this is also a constant practice when I'm in the forest, is to actually be there, not let the mind start to go off and think about, oh, what about this and what about that, and So yeah, that's been a renewed practice, and really it's about being present. And then same with meditation. I've sort of danced with it, and now I've also been far more diligent about using that as a way to just sort of tune out everything out there and tune back into just being here and now. So yeah, it's yeah, we could easily go on a rant about everything out there, and you could make up the ways that it could impact you, and you could get really caught up in, oh yeah, but what if it's going to do this, and what if it's going to do that, and but you're right, just getting back to the day to day doesn't really have any impact.
Well, yeah, and let's say, and even to the point of that, like, even if it did change things, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah,
I'm going to do the same thing. I just have to do it better, or I have to, like, I still have to do the things that I have to do. I still have to do my work. I still have to take care of my kid. Like that doesn't change. And I
sure.
might have to shift and adapt to things. And I'm not saying that I'm not. I don't think the solution is just to be, ostrich with your head in the sand type of thing. But it's yeah, like I feel like I give way too much credence to things on the outside and much less to things on the inside. And so I guess one thing with that too is you think about, like you're talking about, like getting out in nature and all these things that really help to ground us. One of the things that I've found is really helps to really ground me is taking whatever or taking decisions off of my plate, meaning that the more decisions I have to make throughout the day, and we know as dads, like we got to make a lot of choices about what our kids are doing and how they're acting and how they're what they want us to do and what our partners want us to do, and there's lots of decisions that have to be made. And if I stack all my own decisions too on top of that, the things that I should that I would make day to day, it's like it's decision overload. So one of the things I've also done over the last little bit that I've found has been really helpful, it's like, okay, like what, like just deciding, it's down to the like deciding what I'm going to eat today. Like if I'm deciding every little meal, like every time I want to eat something, I mean that could become overload. If the life is already kind of on
On top of everything
overload,
else.
right?
Sure.
So let's
Yeah.
say, so I've been restricting my calories, and also trying to maintain a certain level of protein. So that's one of the things. So I'm calorie restricted, but I still want to maintain. So it's like 200 grams of protein every day, but still be calorie restricted, which is difficult.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's difficult if I'm thinking about it all the time. Like, okay, like what do I want to eat right now? Oh, does it have enough protein? Oh, is that going to leave me enough calories for later? That sort of thing.
Sure.
So over the last little bit, so like first thing in the morning, so I know that, like, one of the things, so there's 4 eggs I'll have. I know that my wife likes hard boiled eggs, so she hard boils a bunch of eggs in the morning, some for me, some for her. So I've got that. I set up my lunch, and I'm tracking everything. So I'm measuring the food, I'm weighing it, which can seem for a lot of people listening, but like, oh my God, like it's a nightmare. But it's really not. It takes a minute to do it. But then all of a sudden, what I also started doing, I was like, okay, I'd have my lunch, but then I'd kind of leave my dinner for later. Then I'd kind of figure that out when I got home. Well, we also have a lot of leftovers in our family here. So I was like, oh, well, what if I just weighed out, like, so I have a bowl of chili tonight. It's like, what if I just weighed out my chili and figured all that out? And when I did that, I'm like, oh, that's so easy. It became so easy. It's like, oh, like I just know, oh, this is what I'm going to eat today. I never had to think about it again. I just know, like, oh, when I'm hungry, I just reach for one of the things that I've made already. So that's kind of like this idea of meal prepping
Yeah.
was amazing. And we've done it a lot, but I've only kind of done it like, oh, I'll make a big batch of this, and I'll make a big batch of this, and we'll kind of eat it, whatever. But when I got really granular around it, so spending an extra 2 minutes maybe doing this way has now opened up. Well, I can't quantify the amount of time it's opened up that I don't have to. I'm not preparing or doing all this stuff, but the mental bandwidth that it's opened up is like it's amazing. So it's like, oh, like, so all these other things. And we think about these people like the Steve Jobs of the world, Mark Zuckerberg is that kind of was kind of what like that too for a little bit. These people who they're trying to take away decision fatigue. So every time you saw Steve Jobs, he was always wearing the same thing. He was always wearing those whatever jeans he was wearing with a black turtleneck, and that was it. And his closet was full of those things. And because and I think about like someone that I follow now, like a more modern take would be Dan Martell. Dan Martell, anytime you see him on stage, he's always wearing the same thing. Anytime you see him on a video, he's always wearing the same thing. It's a blue shirt. He's got his Martell blue shirt, like his whatever signature blue that he has. It's like a light blue shirt, and like that's it. He always wears that. That's his thing. And I know you love black t-shirts, black V-neck t-shirts. I'm the same way. I love black V-neck t-shirts. I've got a whole drawer of them.
I got 8 of these. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I don't want to have to think about like what am I going to wear? Like I like this, so this is so I'm just going to do this. So I don't ever have to think about that. There's no mental gymnastics going on about what I'm going to wear. And so I feel like the less of those little decisions I can make, the more I have for the actual important things that I want to put my time and energy to. So right now it's like I know that I'm getting in, not necessarily, I'm not getting in over my head, but I'm getting into deep waters, into projects that I'm not familiar with. And I'm doing it at, while trying to maintain stuff in my family and, all that stuff. So it's like, I've chosen to just pare down any unnecessary clutter in my brain about anything else. And I found it helpful. So I don't have to think about what I'm going to do when I get home. So all of a sudden, the other thing that happens too is when I get home, I know, okay, I've got this little bowl of chili that I'm going to eat. When I get home, my girls are also like, okay, let's go to the park. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like I don't have to think about, what am I going to, maybe let me make something for dinner first or whatever. Yeah. It's like, okay, great. Grab my chili. Let's go. And so, so it just opens up opportunity. It opens up space for things that actually matter. And so if I'm gonna share some advice with people, which I don't like doing, but it's like just look at what is working or what do you want to have happen in your day, and it's like what can you pare down, like what can you remove. So what like decisions, what little things that seem little, but once we stack little things up, they become a big thing.
Sure.
It's like not eating or not brushing your teeth one day is not going to give you a mouthful of cavities. You tack that on 100 days in a row, then you got a problem, sure. Right? So these little things compound over time, and I think we could just really benefit as dads to really think, okay, well, what's really important? Like, where do I actually want to spend my time? Do I want to spend my time thinking about what I'm going to wear every day or thinking what I'm going to eat every day? And the answer might be yes, and that's fine. Like to me, I'm a creature of habit when it comes to eating stuff. I could eat the same thing day in, day out all the time. My wife is very different. She's like, she hates leftovers. She loves when it comes to meals and things like that, she's much more of the need, the quote unquote need for variety. Whereas I'm more like comfort, certainty when it comes to that.
Consistency.
Yeah, so it's just like whatever we value. So like so put your time and energy into the things that you value as opposed to the things that are just kind of getting in the way of living out your values. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, it just seems, we didn't plan for this, but thread of our conversation here right from the very beginning has been routine around consistency and just how important that can be. Well, it is in our lives and our kids' lives, especially when things can be quite varied outside of us, like taking on a new project. There's a lot of variety, a lot of unknowns in that. So it's even probably more helpful to double down on these things that are consistent. And when the world seems like it's getting flipped upside down outside of, outside the walls of our house, how important it is to possibly even double down on consistency. So, it's a good reminder, and you can see it. Like, I can also think about how you're right. What can we, what ultimately, when some of these big things are happening, what can we actually do? And you do see people, want to do something, right? They want to feel empowered in a situation that feels very disempowering when you've got these big things that are happening, presidents of countries making these decisions that, impact you to some degree, but you don't have any control over. So, but you do see people gravitate to, okay, but what can I do? There's boycotts going on right now about, not some people are selling their Teslas, some people are not buying from Amazon. You can see people putting up their Canadian flags. They're doing what they're trying to do something to feel empowered in a sea of chaos or seemingly chaos. So
Yeah, and I think that's great, and I think there's room for that. And I think if someone feels called to do that, then great. I would also ask the question, like, is that really the best use? Like, is that really moving the needle for you? I feel like one of the things that is going on today is that we have it's so easy. Everything is so easy today that we will gravitate to feel thinking that small problems are giant problems. Like we most of us, everybody, well, I would say everybody listening likely has a roof over their head. And that is a luxury. In our 2 million-year-old brain, that's a luxury. Not having
Yep.
to think about, like the other day, it was crazy. In our yard here in West Vancouver, we have had bears come through our yard. We have raccoons regularly, foxes. And we just had a cougar go through our yard last week. Like these cats, like we saw it from our window. We took a video of it, and this thing,
No joke. Yeah.
it's no joke. They're big and they look strong. And the way that it just jumped from into our yard, like into the bushes in the back, oh my gosh! Like it jumped 5 feet in the air, like it was just a little hop. Like it was insane. And I'm thinking, wow, like how lucky are we that we're in the house? Like we have we have a place of refuge that even if they tried, these animals, as rabid as they may be, as they could, if they ever were, they couldn't get in the house. The big bad wolf cannot blow this house down here, and that is luxury. Like I think about our ancestors, like going back a while, but like they had to figure out, okay, how are we going to stay alive today? Like that was what life was how are we going to stay alive today?
Yeah,
And we
truly.
don't have that.
Truly in a state of survival. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are, we are so, we have so much comfort, even though we think our life is really uncomfortable and we have the biggest problems in the world. Like we have to put things in perspective. Like our problems are relatively small compared to what it could be. And so I think in times like that, well, we all need, like we talk about our human needs. Like we have a need for certainty. We have a need for variety. Part of that need for variety and like our need for significance also, and our need for connection and love, and then our need for growth and contribution on top of that. I think some of those things, like we're going to create problems. We're going to create conflict. We're going to create these things when they're not out there already, so that we can feel that sense of being certain about something. Like I'm certain about, like I have the right way, or there's variety, there's uncertainty about like what's going on in the world. So we're sucked into that. We feel a sense of significance, like I'm on the right side of this, or like this is really affecting me in a big way, or whatever it is. And we feel really connected because other people are feeling that way. And if it also then translates into a way for us to be able to grow and also contribute to others, like being able to serve others, then great. Like that's it. Like then attach your wagon to it. Like go for it. But if it's just a distraction for all the other stuff, like I think like, okay, well, look in the mirror. Like what is really important?
Mm-hmm.
Like is whining and complaining and getting all riled up about something that Donald Trump may or may not have said more important than your kid's livelihood? Like, is it more important than the big decision about a relationship you need to make? Is it more important than the big decision about a business or about your career that you need to make? Is it more important than the decisions you may or may not be making about taking care of your body every day? Like, I think we have to put things in perspective. Like, if all those little things are taken care of, then great. Like, then you have the bandwidth to take care of to think about all the other things. But if they're just a distraction, then that's all they are, and then they become the demise of life, as opposed to something that grows our life.
Yeah, that's the word that came up for me right away. Yeah, it's a distraction. And, are you allowing it to be a distraction because you don't want to tackle some of those things? Because it's pretty easy now to flick on whatever channel you're using or whatever app and just be consumed by it.
Yeah, and I've definitely been guilty of that, like for sure. It's sometimes it just feels too painful. It feels too hard to face whatever is actually going on. But ultimately, the just like to go back to like my cold plunge, the longer I sit out of the cold plunge and not go in, the harder it feels like it gets. Mm-hmm. The less and less that I want to do it, and the more time I've wasted. I mean, now it's interesting. Now I can look back. So I have a thread on Signal that, like, we have a group chat on Signal with a bunch of guys that we all cold plunge in the morning. So it's like our little accountability group. And I've noticed that when I'm super consistent, I'm almost like I can look back probably on the last month or so. At least 9 out of 10 times, the timestamp of my photo is 4:44 in the morning.
Right. That consistent, yeah.
It's super consistent. So I'm like, oh, like that's really consistent. But what's interesting is that I know if there's a day that I wasn't on there, or if there's a day where there's like, other stuff has gone on maybe the day before, I've let myself get off. All of a sudden it's like 5:00 something. It's like 7 a.m. So it's like it gets put off. And it's like, oh, it's really, really fascinating. And because those little things, again, they compound. And so it's like the longer that I can do it too. I can stand there, and I used to do it a lot. I'd stand there and look at my cold plunge and go, okay, I'm going to go in. Maybe not today. And I try to talk myself out of it. And all of a sudden it's like 15 minutes has gone by. I'm like, oh man, like I could have meditated. I could have made breakfast. I could have watched a sitcom. I could have done all kinds of other things, but no, I'm sitting here contemplating whether or not I should go into my cold plunge. It just wastes so much other stuff. And I lose so many opportunities that, like, we talk about, like, the opportunity cost. We think about, I know with stuff with our health, like as my work as a chiropractor, our work in business and anything, it's like we weigh, like, what is it going to cost us to do this thing? Like, somebody would come into the office, into my chiropractic practice, and be like, okay, so we do all the testing. Okay, so this is what it's going to take to get you well. So it's going to take, we're going to do a program of care. It's going to cost you this much. Like, this is the investment to do it. And they're like, okay, that's a lot of money. It's like, yeah, but compared to what? And then also, okay, so there's the cost of doing it. So it's going to cost you $1,000 over the next 2 months to do this. The cost of not doing it, though, is remaining in pain, remaining unproductive, remaining grumpy, letting your health deteriorate. And so let's say this goes on for another year. What is it going to cost you a year from now to do it? And what are the opportunities that you've lost in that year from not dealing with your problem, not dealing with this? Like, I know that for some people, let's say with their health things, like, they've ignored their health so much that it's cost them relationships. Like, they are grumpy, they are irritable, they're not themselves, they retreat from life, and that affects their relationship so much so that the partner is like, you know what, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. It's just like, so yeah, so you didn't want to pay $1,000, but it cost you your life.
Yeah.
And so we have to really weigh out the opportunity cost versus what we perceive as the cost, like the opportunity lost versus the cost of the opportunity.
Well, I think that ties right back to, what comes to mind though is if you're so in it, it's hard to see that big picture. Like I was just thinking, like, wow, that makes so much sense. Like, why can't they just see that bigger picture and weigh the different pros and cons and see the opportunity cost and the bigger return on the investment? But it can be hard, I think, because if you're allowing yourself to be so in it and you're, in it out there and you're distracted by that and you haven't, and you've got all these decisions that have piled up. Like if you're doing all the things that you're saying that not to do, then it can be pretty easy to be there and be like, oh, I can't spend this money right now. It seems like too much because I've got all these decisions and I've let all the stuff from the outside go on, and I'm not really in a place where I can just slow things down for a second and go and be able to factor all that in and go, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That is the right thing for me to do. So
Mm-hmm.
how all of it, yes, adds up, or how all of it can be simplified down to being able to be in a place where you can make that decision.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you something interesting too with that is I find a lot of times, and keep looking at the stats of let's say my chiropractic practice, I can look back and go, and it usually happens after the fact where I'm like, oh, wait a second. And I'll look back and kind of retrospectively look at it. But I know the times when I am so much more zoned into my own self, like I'm taking care of myself, I'm clear, I'm getting sleep, all those things. I do the same things, the same tests, the same procedures, the same, the same framework, the same assessments on people. Yet when I'm more clear within myself, when I'm more on my game, people say yes way more. People sign up way more. So there's something that happens when we are in contact with another. The one with the most certainty will influence the person with less certainty. And sometimes it's those times that when I am feeling uncertain in myself, like I'm looking for somebody to help. Like I need help. We all need help. We all need support. And I think when it comes, same thing with our parenting. It's like if I'm all over the place, then my kids' meltdowns become a meltdown of mine. And then all of a sudden that turns into this spiral of like, now everybody's upset. But if I can be the one that is the calm in the storm, because I've done my work and I'm here, I'm present. My kid's meltdown is not it's not breaking me psychologically.
Yeah.
Then it's okay. Then everything turns out a little bit better. And so I think about, let's say just from my own standpoint, like it feels much better to be in control of my own self. Like when I feel like I'm in control and things are, there's some ease within my own body, everything else seems a little bit easier. But then take that a step further. And I think about those times when I wasn't like that. And I offered someone recommendations and I told somebody the path to be able to help with their health and things like that. Because I didn't have the certainty within myself, just about life in general, not about the care that I give, because I'm very certain about that. I know that when I give recommendations that like this can help you. And I just really want to help. But when they sense inside of me that like, oh, this guy's not certain or something like, there's something that we can't measure. It's that unspoken language that's happening where they say, you know what? No. I look back at those times like, man, like I robbed them of the opportunity to heal. I robbed them. Like I hurt them, not directly, but my decision to not take care of myself is negatively affecting them because I'm not allowing myself to be a leader in this situation. And I allowed them to just go back into their shitty lifestyle and to make the same dumb decisions that got them in this problem in the first place. And I know that over time, those are just going to compound and it's going to make things worse for everybody. Not just for them, but for their whole sphere. Same with stuff with our kids, right? Like when we're allowed to, or when we're allowing all that, kind of BS to happen in our own house, then that bleeds over. Our kids act out at school. Their kids act out at school. There's the ripple effect, right? So there's that kind of like butterfly effect that happens from every little thing that we do. And we don't necessarily think that's the case. We think that, oh, it's like it's just an action that is in a silo. It's just done in a vacuum, but it's not. Like everything that we do, we think about, like you've talked a lot about, and you turned me on to the four agreements, but like being impeccable with our words, and like that's really important, because when we're not, that allows other people to not be impeccable with theirs. It irritates other people, and there's that trickle down effect that happens. And one of my favorite quotes is by Dr. B.J. Palmer, one of the developers of chiropractic. He said, "We never know how far-reaching something you may say, think, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow." And I know that I'm likely not going to be the next president of the universe, but somebody that I affect may be. And so every interaction that I have with people, every interaction I have with my kids, like we have the opportunity for that to be something sacred. But if I'm making, what am I going to eat for dinner tonight? Or, oh, what am I going to wear tomorrow? If that's top of mind, as opposed to how can I just be present with my kids, it's a very different story. It's a little thing. It's a little tweak, but it has giant ramifications.
Yeah. Well, I think of a couple things. Yeah, one is, you're right. You don't know the impact you're ultimately going to have. There's another quote too that makes it a little, I don't know, for me, it makes it a little more palatable. It's, I think it's Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, like, to have truly lived is to know that you've made, one one person breathe easier. Like if your net effect in your ecosystem of living is to have just net helped somebody just breathe a little bit easier in their life. Yourself and everybody else, and including one extra person. If everyone did that, the net on the planet would be a gain. Because it's sometimes far-reaching to think that you could have impact on a million people. But you're right. All you have to do is worry about one extra person, and maybe that's the person that does it. Or maybe your mission is to do it yourself.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine, actually just yesterday, my friend Nima, and we were talking about, he's doing some pretty cool things right now, and he's written a book that's going to come out later this year, and his stuff is really blown up for him and what he's doing. And we were talking about how, like, way back when he sent me a picture of, I think it was like 2009 when he kind of first started this kind of journey he's on, and he's like, he was at a point where he wanted to give up. He's like, I was just going to give it all up. But then there was like one person, like he said, there was like one client whose son had something going on that he said, like, could you help my son? And he's like, yeah. And then he like totally transformed this kid's life. And he's like, so because of that, it's like that one interaction gave him the strength to be like, okay, no, I'm going to continue on. And now it's like everything has changed. It's like everything's completely different. But it was like that one little thing. It's like, so we don't need, you don't need to change the lives of a million people. And I had a very similar situation too. Like starting a new endeavor can be really, like, it's a grind sometimes. Like, I don't know what's going to work. I don't know what, like, dialing in, we're talking about like communication and like nonverbal communication and like what messaging is going to land with people and, all that stuff. And when it's not landing, it's like, I feel like, like it's something about me. Like, I'm an asshole. There's something like, I have nothing of value here to give, and this is not working or whatever. But then, I had a situation with my own sister where I helped my sister to do something with this thing this program I'm putting together. And she was like, I'm like, this is totally what I need. I was like, oh, wow. Like, okay. Like, it helped her. And who would I want to help more than my own family? And like, I think like, if it helped my own family, okay, well, it's worth it. Like, it helped her. So, okay, let's keep going. So yes, it doesn't have to be these big grandiose things. Just like our little reps of our daily habits. Those little daily decisions that we make. They don't have to be a big thing, but they make us continue.
Yeah. That's a helpful reminder when I look at our show stats and I see that there's a few views. Just like who knows? Maybe just one person that's been able to listen to us and heard something we said. Maybe that's maybe we've been able to impact their life positively, and they're breathing a little bit easier. And as we've from the beginning, maybe it's just for our grandkids, and they end up getting to watch this, and one thing they hear helps change their life.
So do you ever listen to the podcast Diary of a CEO?
I know of it. I might have listened to a couple, but not regularly.
Yeah, I don't listen to it regularly either, but yeah, right. So I haven't listened to this episode yet, but I want to. It's with. Do you know who has the largest YouTube channel on the planet right now? You know who it is?
Not Rogan.
The YouTube channel, not
Oh,
podcast.
YouTube.
YouTube
That's
channel.
right. Spotify. Beast. No.
Yeah, Mr. Beast,
Yeah.
giant. The guy's, on paper, he's a billionaire. He would say, no, he has no money because he spends everything on production and stuff like that. But he's on the Diary of a CEO, and one of the clips that I saw, like he talked about, like in the first 10 years, he made videos for 10 years. Nobody was watching. Nobody watched. Nothing happened. He just kept doing them because he loved doing them.
Yeah.
And it became, now he's the biggest podcast, or the biggest YouTube channel in the world. He's got all these different businesses that have spawned from that. The food businesses, the restaurants. He's got a TV show on Prime, like some game show thing, Beast Games or whatever it is, on Amazon Prime. Yeah. I mean, the guy's balling now. But you think about his first, even let's say, never mind the first video that nobody was watching. The 100th video, nobody was watching. But his vision superseded that. Like he knew that there was something going on. Like knew there was something of value there. And he's like, okay. And I think for anybody, and I need this constant reminder. So I'm saying this for myself, that if there is a thread of desire within you, it is worth it to pull on that thread. To just keep pulling on that thread. Like don't stop. If there's
and that
there's
focus,
something in there.
Yeah. Well, and I hear that same focus that you're applying to this new project of yours as well, because, my version of him was of content and how to get people to watch it, and the algorithm, and how to get his content in front of people, and it's an obsession about the content and the algorithm, and he eventually figured out how to do it. So yeah, it's if you've got that focus, I think right back to the beginning here, what we said, in that persistence and that consistency, eventually you'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's so much of it for like say like for someone like him. I don't exactly know the whole story, but it would seem as though like for somebody like that who's that obsessed about something, it becomes just a puzzle to solve. Like he knew it's about the algorithm. So there's this thing it's outside of him that he can and did figure out. Whereas for so many of us, and I'll just speak for myself, all of a sudden when I'm confronted with a challenge, when there's something I've got to figure out, let's say like this marketing thing. In moments of when I'm not in a great state, I will default into thinking it's not working because of something that is wrong with me. I'm the problem here. And it's not something on the outside to solve. It's not this challenge to solve. It's not like, okay, I've got to just figure out the kind of communication angle. I've got to figure out whatever it is. It's not something to figure out. It's just, I can't figure it out because it's me. It's like, I'm the asshole here. When I step back and like now thinking about it and talking about it, it's like, well, no, like it's just something I just got to figure out. And if I can stick at it long enough and iterate and just follow the data, then things then just have to work out because it's something that could be figured out. But a million other people have done it. So what says that I can't? But the moment that I believe that it's just something inherently about me, well, then it stops. And I think so many of us will just stop ourselves from we're inches. We've said this, I've said this, and I think you said this over the last little bit when we've been talking about our kind of projects and the things that we've got going on in life is like we're just inches from success. We're just inches from there. But like, so it's like don't give up. Just keep pulling on that thread. Keep iterating. Keep paring down the things, the unnecessary decisions that you need to make, and just focus on the things that are important. Like focus on your kids being just good human beings. Focus on providing a good life for them by being present. Provide a good life for ourselves by being present within ourselves and following the desires that we have. Like just doing the necessary work, and just keep doing the necessary work, regardless of how you feel. Just keep doing the work. Like it will pay off. My kids are not going to just grow up just like that. Like they're not going to go from 8 to 30 overnight. But if I want them to be a successful 30-year-old, like a respected person in the world and a fulfilled person in the world, we can't skip over that. So it means today. Today, what are we going to do today to make sure that happens? We can just reverse engineer that. So what are the things I need to do today to make sure that happens? And we're good to go. And it seems so simple, like it seems too simple. And I don't want to confuse simple with easy. It's certainly not easy. But it's the little things decided on, committed to, and compounded over time. That's it. Like Warren Buffett said, the ninth wonder of the world, compound interest.
Yeah. Yeah. And compounding those good decisions, you're right, that we've talked about this whole episode here, compounding those good decisions and allowing for them and getting rid of the ones you don't need to make, and then doing that every day.
Yeah. There, we solved it.
That's it. And we didn't talk about either of the things that we were going to talk about.
Funny how that happens, right?
This was more important.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Okay, we'll have an amazing day, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, you too, bro. Thanks, everybody. Ciao.